Hello and welcome back to the Strength of G podcast. This is episode 8. I am here. For those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see my huge big G mug. I've got a lovely black coffee. And as always, I am just checking that this is episode 8. Yes, it is. Welcome back. Right, so today I put a little poll on my Instagram to see what I should talk about next on the podcast. I always feel like there's an overwhelming amount of things I could talk about, and then it's quite hard to choose what. So it was quite helpful to just put three thoughts out there and see what you guys replied. And actually, most of you replied the one about why did I quit caffeine, and an equal number of you clicked on the one about the menstrual cycle and training around your menstrual cycle. So I'm going to do both, but today I'm going to cover why I quit caffeine and talk about that. And why maybe you should too. I don't know. That is up to you. That is not for me to decide. But I will share why I did and why I think it's really benefited me. And then I guess you can make your own decisions based on that. And based on anything else you read about it. So yeah, I thought I'd start with a nice black coffee, decaf obviously. And also that I would start with the benefits. So like, what have I noticed? I quit around April or May last year, 2024. So it's now February 2025. So almost a year ago. And so I think it's been long enough to kind of say with confidence some things I've noticed. Obviously, you can never say with certainty that it was only caffeine that has brought on these benefits, but I do think it has had some impact and a positive one. So some of the benefits I've noticed in the last 9 months, and especially in the more recent months, sort of as time has passed, I've noticed these even more so, but are feeling less anxious, having way more energy just throughout the day, less of a slump in the middle of the afternoon, in fact, kind of none or very little, and generally sleeping better. And most of all, and this is very obvious to me and actually quite surprising to me, but waking up always very alert. So when I'm still in bed, I still would like to hit snooze. I still feel quite tired and don't want to get up. But once I'm up, if I just get up, or whenever I manage to actually get up, once I'm awake, I never ever have the urge to like make a cup of coffee. Like I drink coffee, I drink decaf because I enjoy it. It's a nice hot drink. I think there's a placebo effect to that as well. So I have it throughout the day while I'm working. But when I first get up, I never ever have the urge to like go downstairs and make a coffee. So that surprised me. But that like once I'm up, I'm alert, I'm awake. And that's actually quite a nice thing. So that's probably the one thing that has made me not want to go back to drinking coffee or not really crave it or caffeine. Which is interesting. So I guess a little bit of a backstory as to why I didn't plan to stop drinking caffeine. And I probably should say it's not that I've never ever had caffeine since April last year. I've had the occasional Coke. I've had some caffeine-free Coca-Cola as well. Coca-Cola, not Coke. And I have had the odd coffee, either because I forgot to order a decaf, or last week I had a normal coffee because the place I work has a coffee machine, and I started to notice, initially I didn't notice this, and then I started to notice that the decaf isn't great. And so this one day I was like, I'm just going to have a normal coffee because it tastes nice. So I did it out of the taste, but I'm very careful of not suddenly falling into a habit. So I have a rule. I think it's quite helpful to have just like a rule. So for me, it was like one a week. So once I'd had that one, if I thought again about like, oh, I could just get the normal coffee because it tastes better, I'm like, no, you've had one a week. Like, I know if I start to have it, it's not that having two would make a significant difference, but it's more just getting into the habit of having caffeine again. I know will start to disrupt my sleep again. I know will have the effect that caffeine has on your body, and potentially I'm quite susceptible to caffeine. So yeah, for me, it's just a no, just a rule of like, you've had one, like that's nice, you can have that, but just don't go crazy. I'm going to a music concert on Saturday. I probably will have some sort of like maybe Coca-Cola or some sort of drink to try and keep me awake through the concert, because this is a topic for another podcast, but I also don't really drink alcohol anymore. But that's a whole other topic for another podcast for similar reasons, like sleeping better and just feeling better. But so going to a music concert, like I really want to go, I'm really excited, but I can't drink alcohol, or not can't, but I don't want to. I feel better without drinking it, but it does help you get through the night feeling energized. So if I also don't drink caffeine, I mean, obviously you absolutely can do that, but I probably will have like one slightly caffeinated drink, like a Coca-Cola or something. Probably have a trip drink with me as well. So there are other options, but yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm still new to it too. And for me, going to a concert for 3 hours, I still feel like I want something just to keep my energy levels up. So the story of why. So yeah, I didn't set out planning to quit caffeine. I didn't realise that I was susceptible to it that much. In fact, I thought it didn't have any effect on me. I thought I drank caffeine and it made me sleepy. I thought it had no effect on me. And I was wrong. I was definitely wrong about that. And what changed in April is I had this really weird experience where I had a headache for a week straight. I was quite stressed. I was working a lot. I was spinning a lot of plates, and I had this massage for 2 hours on my back and neck that I think just made me relax and maybe released some tension that had been there for a long time in my neck. And from then on, from the end of that massage onwards, for a week I had a headache. I woke up with it. I woke up in the night with it. I went to bed with it. It was never so acute that I couldn't see, or it wasn't like a migraine in that sense, but it was there all the time. And I would drink loads of water and do all the normal things, take some paracetamol. The only times I didn't have the headache was when I was like exercising or talking in front of people, or like if I had a distraction that was like really, like took all my focus, like teaching a class where you have 11, 10, 12 faces looking back at you, waiting for the next thing to do. I would go 2 hours during that class and not notice it, which is great. I was like, oh, that's good. It can't be that bad because I don't feel worse when I'm exercising or when I'm teaching. But the headache was always there. Like as soon as I would stop, as soon as things would calm down, it was still there. So it got me obviously quite concerned. I called my GP and they said to come in straight away. Then they asked me some questions and then they sent me to A&E and they basically thought I had a blood clot. And so I waited in A&E. Then I realised I could be dying, and I had this sort of, what's it called? Like end of life, like my life flashed before my eyes, and yeah, I thought this was the end. It was very dramatic. My partner was there, luckily my sister was there too, but for the night shift my partner was there, and there was definitely a point where I looked at him and I was like, this is it, this is the end. What if I never do anything again? And I had, yeah, and actually don't know how to say this, but like it was actually a really good thing to have your life flash before your eyes, because when, in the end I wasn't dying, but it was actually quite a good experience because it made me realise that I was fairly content with how I'd spent my life. But also it made me, like, as soon as the doctor told me I was fine the next morning, so it was like a whole night that I was just sat there like, I'm waiting for the results from this scan and they've moved me into a ward and am I being admitted? And it was just really weird. And the nurse couldn't obviously tell me what was happening. Once the doctor told me that I was fine, that I just had a headache, but there was nothing showing up on the scan that was wrong with my brain, and he gave me some paracetamol and sent me home. Once that happened, I actually wrote down in a notebook, like, okay, based on that experience, like, what do I want more, like, what do I want more of in my life and what do I want less of? And so that was a really valuable lesson and was actually a really positive experience. Terrifying, but positive. And so after that, basically, I came home. I still was on quite a, like, come down of, like, the headache started to pass, but I started to realise how exhausted I was, and I kind of basically started to become more aware of how I was feeling and how maybe I was so stressed that I wasn't paying attention to how I was feeling. And I was so busy doing all these things, and I had early mornings and late nights working as a personal trainer in a gym, and I started to realise like how tired I really was, and also potentially how anxious I was. And I don't know, I find this really interesting because I didn't identify as being anxious. I didn't have moments where I was sat there feeling anxious. I never had that until I started to tune in and started to notice things, but I didn't have that at all. I didn't realise I was anxious. I didn't realise I was stressed because I was so busy just taking action, just doing stuff. And it was only when I was forced to slow down that I realised, And then I started to really notice it. So like how short my fuse was. So like if my partner, we were in the supermarket and he'd be like, do you want this or this for breakfast tomorrow? I'd be like, I don't know, you just choose. And I just started to realize I was getting frustrated over the tiniest things. And it was like my fuse was just so short. And I felt like everyone was asking things of me that I couldn't deal with, like this one little thing that now he was asking me. And bless him, it was so not his fault and he was so supportive. But even he was like, oh, maybe I just upset you. Is it just me? Like that I'm, not being helpful. And I was like, no, you're the one person, like not the one person, but you are being very, very helpful. I'm sorry, basically. And I'm not okay. And so essentially, I think I experienced burnout. There's not really a way to I didn't go to a GP to be diagnosed with it. I don't think you can be, but sort of looking back, I think I was experiencing burnout. And honestly, if anyone is going through it at the moment, it does take a few months for it to fully pass, like 3 to 6 months for it to fully pass. It's not a quick oh, I'll just rest for 3 days, I'll sleep for 3 days, I won't work for 3 days, and then I'll be fine. Like it takes longer for this stuff to pass. It took a long time to get there. It's going to take a little while for you to come out of it as well. So one of the things I noticed, as soon as I identified some anxiety, I thought about caffeine, and I thought, well, caffeine is known to increase anxiety. So although it might not fix the deep rootedness of my anxiety and why I'm feeling anxious, it's definitely adding to it at the moment. So why not just remove it? Even if that takes me from 100% anxious to 80% anxious, I was like, surely that's going to be good. And I mentioned it to my partner and he was like, yes, I really think you should do that. So I did. And initially, for me, how I did it was by, rather than just removing the coffee and the moment of ordering a coffee in a cafe and sitting there and doing an hour of work, or, having a coffee with friends, or having a coffee in the morning with my housemates or my partner, instead of just removing that, I just switched what I was drinking. So in the initial period, what I did was I'd have a cup of tea instead, or a decaf tea, or I'd have a herbal tea, or I'd have a chai latte, or I'd have a hot chocolate, and I just switched them out. Then I started to realise that, nothing against those drinks, but they weren't really what I enjoy. What I enjoy is having a flat white. What I enjoy is having a black Americano every now and then, or what I enjoy is having cappuccino every now and then. So now I just drink those, but decaf. So I just always order decaf. And I've realised, now a long time has passed and of me doing that. I've been doing that for a while. And I do just enjoy the flavour, the smell of coffee. And yes, decaf isn't exactly the same as caffeinated, but I'd rather order that, and I prefer that over a chai latte and some of the other non-caffeinated alternatives. And essentially I've just got used to it. I'd say the only advice I could give is if initially it's hard. I did go the first 3 days or so, I just went cold turkey. I was like, you need to give this long enough to see how you feel. And then from then on, if every now and then I did sort of I don't know, if I'd go to family and they were all making coffee in Italy, everyone drinks coffee after lunch. Initially, I would just kind of fall back into the habit of having it. But I just would always just get back on track. Okay, cool. You forgot about it in that moment, or you decided to lean into it and have the coffee with everyone. But just remember, you always order decaf. Just always order decaf. Because even if you're not 100% compliant, simply having less caffeine is still going to have a positive impact. You don't have to go completely cold turkey, but having, say, coffee only every other day, I don't know, only having it on Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays, and really trying not to have it at all over the weekend, for example. Or saying the opposite, actually at work you never have it, Monday to Friday you never have it, but on the weekend you can have a coffee because you're more social, you go out more, maybe on the weekends is when you want a coffee. Even that will have a positive impact. So that's a little bit about my story, why I did it. Yes, it had a positive impact. Like I said, I don't think it's the only thing that helped me recover from burnout. I also no longer do late nights or early mornings in the gym. So I now have reduced my schedule. I work sort of 9 till 6, which also gives me wiggle room. Every now and then I'll have a client who needs, who can't make their usual slot, and I might work 6 till 7. But it's still not, it never gets to what it was before, where I was just adding and going in really early and coming home really late and just thinking I could do it all. I can't. Surprise, I can't. So that was a huge thing I did in terms of recovering from burnout. I also have stopped taking in-person clients, so now I'm only taking online clients. So, I'm keeping the in-person clients I have, and I love them. I feel so lucky to say that I love working with all of my clients. But now I'm just not taking more in person and instead building the online side of my business. So I've made a lot of conscious changes to my lifestyle in order to recover from burnout and now stay recovered, like not burn out again. And I'm very mindful of that now. Also, actually, two other things I'd mentioned that I did is I started eating healthier. So whereas before, because I was so damn busy, I was eating meal deals from the supermarket because that's what was available. And I've always been very health conscious, so I would always look for the healthier option or buy the salad option, stuff like that. But then ultimately, like, the salad options are far and few between. So I would also have the sandwiches. I would also have the chocolate bar that comes with the meal deal because I don't really like crisps. So I would have the chocolate bar. And it was just like, I was drinking Red Bull, and then I just said stop. So no more meal deals. So now I just make an effort that at dinner I cook a little bit extra and I take that in for lunch. Failing that, like say I've been out for dinner with friends or something and I haven't got the meal prepped, I always either look in my fridge and in my cupboards if there's something I can kind of like rustle together. It doesn't always have to be a fully home cooked meal. It could be, I don't know, some like, what are they called, like oat crackers and bunch of raw veg, and then maybe at the supermarket you could buy the hummus and you've made a meal like that, or you can buy maybe like the ready cooked grilled chicken slices, or you can make a meal like that. But I always either rustle stuff together at home or go into the supermarket and try and think, right, if I was at home, what would I be eating, and replicate as close to that as possible in the supermarket. So buying individual things rather than a meal deal that's kind of like all put together for you already. I just felt like eating them so regularly was just quite processed, quite low in vegetables and vitamins and minerals, quite low in protein. Whereas by doing this, I'm eating way more variety, way more quantity in terms of vegetables, and making sure I always get protein and just eating healthier. And most of the time I am able to cook at home the night before and bring lunch in. And that's the healthiest option. So then I'm having like always protein, I'm having roasted butternut squash, I'm having green beans, broccoli, spinach, all sorts in my lunchbox at work. So I'm eating super healthy, and that definitely had a positive impact. And then the second thing is quitting alcohol, which maybe I will talk about in another podcast, but obviously, yeah, alcohol isn't great for you and was having a negative impact on, well, I just felt like it wasn't adding anything. And actually that my social life, I'm very confident now, I'm in my 30s now, I'm confident, I have my friendship group, I don't feel the need to socialise to fit in with anyone, and I feel like I can still go see my friends, hang out with them, they can have a beer in their hand, I can have a 0% beer, I can have a juice, I can have water, I can have fizzy water, I can have a Coke, I can have a million other drinks, I can have a mocktail, and I just feel much better going home sober and sleeping well and waking up the next day feeling good. So that was another thing that really helped. And ultimately with burnout, what I felt was I was just tired all the time, but a different kind of tired, that tired where like you've been working flat out for 3 days on like a project in person, but I'd just been living my normal life and even reducing my hours, and I still felt that kind of drained. So that obviously was a big motivator to making me make these changes, and a big motivator to continuing them. And then with time, as I've started to feel better, it's made me not really want to go back to my old habits. So I hope that helps. I hope that gives a bit of insight into my why. And I guess it's important for you to know your why, and for it to be important enough for you to want to do it. That will obviously help. I just wanted to leave, I wrote down here, advice on how to quit caffeine. And I'm not demonizing caffeine, like if you feel good on it, that's fine. What I guess I'm saying is like, I'm saying my experience is this, and if you are feeling quite on edge all the time, or like that maybe you're not sleeping very well, then it is something I would consider looking at. I'm not going to lie and say I sleep perfectly, because there are always other stresses in life and I don't always sleep perfectly, but I do sleep better than before, and I also wake up full of energy, which is huge, because actually kind of I definitely don't stress too much about how I sleep anymore, because when I wake up I always feel full of energy, and I've been like the most productive I've ever been in the last 3 months, and I haven't always slept perfectly, but I always wake up feeling good, so that's huge. Advice on how to quit caffeine. Initially, I just picked other drinks like chai lattes, hot chocolates, herbal teas. Now I just stick to decaf because I prefer the taste and the flavour. So I just stick to decaf, and I still have the hot drink, and I still have that ritual of having a coffee, but just decaf. The third thing I did and I would advise to do is just no. Just deciding like I'm not going, there will be days where you're tired. There will be days where you'll think, oh, I should just have a coffee. But actually, just because you're tired doesn't mean you need to grab a coffee. If you've decided to stick to decaf, just stick to decaf. Let it have a placebo effect on you. Let yourself be a little bit tired. Usually a few hours later, you come out of feeling tired, like you have that little kind of like second wave of energy. Usually you can get to the end of the day, and by not having the caffeine when you thought you needed it, you will sleep better that night. And therefore get back into like a rhythm and be more honest with yourself about your energy levels. If you are tired, great, then you need to sleep more or you need to rest more. But grabbing a coffee, at least for some people, and in my experience, is kind of like this perpetual cycle, and then you don't sleep as well, and it kind of goes on and on and on like that. So just no, just stick to what you said. And then number 4, if you do end up having a coffee because for whatever reason, just have a bit of a rule, have a check-in with yourself. So like no more than once a week. So like it's not terrible if you have one a week will not have a big impact. One a day will, and also just be mindful that it's very easy to just fall back into a routine with it. So you can have a rule like I had the other day, 1 because it just tasted so much nicer. So I had that, but that's it. And to be honest, I don't count like every week. I'm not like, oh, okay, I can use my 1 coffee. Like I don't think about it. I just don't think about it. If I have had one, then I'm like, just make sure you don't have another. Like don't fall back into old habits. And again, like not to demonize coffee, it's more about my well-being. I feel better now I'm not drinking it. I have way more energy, so why would I go back? I can still have, if you see me with a Coca-Cola in my hand, like I'm still allowed to drink it. It's not a medical reason that I've quit, but it definitely has generally made me feel better. So yeah, I thought I'd share that. I think some of you are interested to hear because I have sort of mentioned it a few times on my stories on Instagram. So yeah, there's the story why I quit caffeine and why maybe, just maybe, you should too. I don't know. That's up to you. But yeah, thanks for listening to the Strength of G podcast. I'll be back in your ears with another episode very soon. Bye.